everyone. My name is Rebecca Manzella. I am the location manager with Resurrection Funeral Home for those of you that I haven't had the chance to meet yet. Thank you so much for joining us for Dying to Know today. We have Christina and Dr. B from Oakland University Body Donation Program here to talk with us about body donation. I know we've touched on it a little bit in the past, but today we're going to get an in-depth look at the process and how that all plays out. So I'm going to hand it over to Dr. B.
Thank you for inviting us to join you. I really like dad jokes, and when I saw Dying to Know, it was very funny. I was telling my kids. So as I was introduced, my name is Mali Baramkala. I'm the Associate Professor of Anatomy at OUWB School of Medicine, and I am the founding director for the Body Donation Program. So why are we here today? So we're going to be talking about who are the people that help us with the body donation program. And we're going to show you the OUWB Anatomy Lab where our medical students work with the donors. And we'll talk to you about why we still use the donors in the medical school. Then we'll talk about some of the benefits from the body donation program. And then we'll talk about some of the community outreach programs that we do in the community. And then we'll show you a short video on how we honor our donors. And then we'll talk to you about the registration process. And all of this is happening because of our connection with the Pixley Funeral Home, and we'll talk about that. And then we'll show you some of the pictures of the OUWB Mausoleum. And in the end, we'll leave some time for you guys to ask any questions that you may have. So as you see, I am Mali Baramkala. I'm the founding director. I also am a faculty member at the School of Medicine, so I teach medical students. I'm also the director of the anatomy lab that I'm going to show you. Next, we have Christina. As you can see, she's Christina Draco. She'll be joining us at the Q&A session. And Dan Schlegel, he's our anatomy lab manager, right? He's responsible for the lab. He could not be here today because we have actually an event happening in the lab. All right, so here is our anatomy lab. And I don't know how many of you been to the anatomy lab. And in my career, I've been to a couple of labs. And so when they interviewed me, I came here and I said, take me in, right? I'm ready. Because this is such a beautiful facility, and I have not seen a facility like this. And if you see the windows, and it's kind of a rare because we have it on the third floor, we have window access to the windows. And this is one place where all of the medical students start, and they will have a transformative experience because they start work on these donors and start learning anatomy, okay? And this is the space where we all start. And if you're wondering, why do we still use the donors? The technology is so advanced, right? There is 3D, there is virtual reality, other things. And if you're wondering why do we still use donors for anatomy, the primary reason is you cannot replace the experience of students learning from real donors. That's as simple as it gets. And in my opinion, again, maybe, 500 years from now, maybe something can happen. But this is how medical school started, and we're still using the same way of teaching. And the other reason why we use is, I say, humanistic education, right? And when the medical students start, right, they learn the science, but if you think of it so after they're done, they're going to be going and treating patients. So we want to treat this, we want to learn them the humanism right from day one. And that's the reason we use the human donors. And one thing that we tell our students is when they start the first day in the anatomy lab, we tell them, hey, treat them as your first patients. In fact, we have 22 groups, and these groups work on the same donor for the entire semester. And we tell them, treat them as first donors, and they kind of have this, affection towards the person that they're working with. And that continues throughout the semester. And this kind of forms an emotional bond with them, okay? And this helps them understand, hey, this is my patient, I need to be treating respectfully towards them. In fact, when they go from one donor to other donor, they need to change their gloves, right? Yes, these are all the donors, right? But to teach them the respect and how they need to treat them, we start them from day one. And as I said, the students treat them as the first patients. In fact, like we have some of the magnets that you can take later. One of the things that when we talk to our potential donors, they tell us that, hey, I'll be coming to your medical school. I could not get a opportunity to go to medical school, but now I can join the medical school. So what are some of the benefits from body donation, right? As you can imagine, right, the students are learning from these donors, right? Again, this is the first thing, like when the medical students come in, the anatomy is the first thing they start. And if you imagine, like after they're going to be physicians, right, they're going to be treating humans, right? So if they want to be treating humans, they need to know the anatomy, right? So this is the foundational discipline, right? Without the lab, without the body donation, I don't know what the students will do. In addition, what we'll do is we have some of the program outreach, right? So for example, like here, we're here, like we do some of the outreach in our community to talk to them about the body donation program. Other things that we do is we work with community schools, like local community high schools, middle schools, and have them come to our lab. All right, this is just a month ago we did with the Rochester High School, and these are students that are aspiring to be healthcare professionals. They never got an opportunity to work with the donors, and this helps them to see how the donor is. And one of the things that I do is like, so how many of you interested in healthcare? Like I do like before and after. After they come back, most of them raise their hands saying that they are interested in the medical care or something like doctors, nurses, something along those lines. Here we have military medics. So some of these medics go to different places, but they don't have access to the donors. And we work with them, we provide them access to the donors. So they train on our donors before they get deployed to these different locations. We have, again, this is the high school students and the military medics that were working in our lab. We also have something called as Project Upward Bound. And you can see these are, when these three are my students, so they were in their first semester, right after they finished anatomy, they were able to teach some of the anatomy to these high school students. Here's the group that came to our anatomy lab. And we also have another program called as Saturday Academy. Again, this is high school students that come, like they do anatomy as part of a larger program. And that's the Saturday Academy from 2023. And you can see my students wearing yellow gowns there. And we have middle school students, like we started just this year. So in the anatomy lab, we have a policy where if somebody is, less than 15 years, we can't have them in the lab because, a lot of the times, maybe they're not aware or maybe they're not used to seeing bodies. And so, but the middle schoolers are still eager to learn. So the way how we do it is we actually take the specimens to one of the classrooms and we teach them in the classrooms. And so we started doing it earlier this year. In addition, another exciting thing is we have medical school, as you can imagine. We also have a physical therapy program, which also use the lab. And this year, we also started physician assistant program. And so even though they don't dissect, they still come to the lab to learn the human anatomy. As you can see, the instructor teaching them using the donors in the lab. So again, we have vocal students, right? So you may be wondering, like, what does vocal students have to do with the anatomy? So when these vocal students are learning, right, the anatomy of the larynx is important for them to learn. And so they do come to our lab to utilize this lab. And lastly, one of the key things is, yes, the medical students are learning anatomy, but when they're learning anatomy, they see a lot of variations. And this is one of the key things why we use the donors. If you think of a 3D program, right, this is based on software, and that software is going to be the same for everybody. And if you think these students, when they're going to go be doctors, right, they're not going to be treating the same person, right? They're going to be treating different people. And different people might have different things. Right? Think of a surgeon, right? If they're doing surgery, yes, we have the same structures, but there may be slight variation in the structure. If physicians are not used to this, and if they go into surgery, right, they may be in a surprise, and it may even sometimes lead to death of the patients. So what we do is every time the students are dissecting anything that is not there in the textbook, we encourage them to do research on this. And so we see, like, we have a large group of students. We went last year and presented it at the anatomy conference, and we do this every year. So this year I was working with almost like 8 groups, and 4 of them were able to get things on time, so they submitted the abstract. But rest of the 4 groups are still working, and we're going to submit another meeting. So as you can see, we get huge benefits from having our donors in the lab. And I would say primarily the students get more from these donors because they're learning anatomy by hands-on dissection experience. Now, how do we honor the donors? Like, as I said, these students have this bond or connection with these donors. So when they're done, they would like to honor these donors in multiple ways. So one of the ways how we do it is we have an anatomy memorial ceremony. And we do this every year. And the way how the students do this, they do reflections, they sing, they do music, right? And these are some of the things that is part of the anatomy memorial ceremony. So this is from 2024. And this is from previous years. And I'll take a moment to just put it here. This is one of our students who wrote a poem after he finished his first year. So I'll keep it just so that you can read. So as you can see, I worked with these students for the whole semester. I never know like he could write a poem in such a beautiful way, but more importantly, like what is going on with him, right? And so this is something that, even sometimes I get surprised. In fact, Christina was pointing to me, if you see the picture there, that is actually drawn by one of our students, right? As part of her reflection towards the donor. So we'll see next a short video. So this is the tribute to our donors.
The most special moments have actually not been anatomical. They are more moments of tenderness, compassion, and peace. It is the student who subconsciously placed their hand over their donor's hand as a sign of comfort while their other team members were performing a procedure with the donor. It is the M1 student in the winter semester who has returned to the anatomy lab facility for some other purpose and breaks out into a smile when they walk past their donor or places their hand lovingly on their donor for a split second as they walk by.
As a student, it's hard to imagine how your body donors help you shape your lives after medical school. But as some have mentioned already, they do.
I'm going to take a little bit of an unconventional approach today to show you an interpretation of human movement the way that I see it. Think about the pictures that each body is creating on their own, and then I want you to think about the picture that the whole group is creating. It's always been my dream to bring my 2 passions together, my love for movement and science. So I thank the families of the donors and the donors themselves for giving their life to science.
The first time I held the human heart, excitement, honor, and fear. Left circumflex artery, right coronary artery. These are the 2 arteries that almost took my dad from me. This heart was the fuel I needed. It powered my heart for medicine, for cardiology. I thank the woman whose heart I held. She is a heartfelt legacy.
I can't even express to you how much we learn from our donors and how important it is for us to be able to see more than just the external anatomy, but what is going on the inside.
Each and every one of those donors was either a mother or a father or a son or a daughter who had dreams and aspirations and are more than the structure that you see in front of you.
The most intimate gift of someone's own body, a gift of knowledge, and a gift we will all forever remember. I found myself particularly emotional when we were able to hold our donors' hearts. What a gift that was, holding something that kept someone living for their whole life, the same thing that keeps us alive each day. I thought about it beating.
What I think is kind of an untold story, not only about the heart, but about these donors, is what they bring for us. They bring us to be leaders. They bring us to be teachers. They bring us closer to our passions.
To our donors and their friends, thank you so very much. We could not be the healthcare professionals we are, or the healthcare professionals we aspire to be without you.
So as you can see, the students, we get very emotional when they do this, and then we do this every year. In fact, like this year, we have students from our own we have donors from our own program. So we're excited to honor the families. We're inviting them to this memorial ceremony, and we'll be honoring their families as part of this event. So one of the things that we started to do is we started to collect a fund for lasting memorial. So what is this lasting memorial? So I'll give you an example of a donor memorial tree at WMed. And so this is a place where they honor all of the individuals. So when they go to their medical school, you can see the glass tree. And they hired one of the local artists, and they make this leaf, as you can see, like this is one of the leaves, and they carve the name of each donor. And as you can see, the tree kind of grows as more people are donating the bodies. And that's how they honor every single individual that comes to their program. And this is a permanent place where each of the donors is honored. So when they come back, this could be a place where family members could sit and think about their loved ones. Here is another one from Birmingham, Alabama. So we're in the process of having something like that at our medical school. Now let's talk about some of the pre-registration process and some of the collaboration that we have with our Pixley Funeral Home. So if you go to our website, you see the donor registration form. It took us a lot of time to get to this, and we tried to make it as simple as possible, but giving you the full option or flexibility of how the donors will be used in our program. And we have some sample forms if you guys want to see. And we also have a body donation program brochure with some of the FAQs. And all of this is also available on the website. You can see the QR code. And Christina brought some brochures if you want to take those. This is the other side of the brochure with some of the FAQs in this. So one of the things that we are doing, there are two kinds of donations, which one is called as a self-donation and the other one is called next of kin donation. So what's the difference? So self-donation is what somebody does when they're living. They get these forms, they go to the form, they sign, and then they do this while they're living. And then after they sign this form, then we send them a body donation card, which they can keep with them. And so after their passing, then the family members talk to us and then we facilitate that. So that's called as self-donation. The next of kin donation is when the family member passes, the families call us, and then in some medical schools, they register. But in our school, we only have self-donation. And the reason for that is, you can read this, autonomy and informed consent. So once the person has passed away, we do not know what the person was thinking. Were they actually thinking of donating or not? And it's not informed consent. And if you think medical students, when they're going to be physicians, the consent is a very important thing for them to understand. And so that's why at our medical school, currently we only do self-donations, because when the students come, they know that every single individual that is in the lab have voluntarily donated their body to the medical school. And so this is the card that I said. So once the person fills the form and they mail it to us, or they can also send an email, we put it in our system, and Christina then prints out this body donation card, and then she mails it to the person that registered. And then this is basically a credit card size. They could put them in their wallet, their purse, wherever it is, and we encourage them to talk to their family members and talk about what should happen after their passing. Here is the service radius for the donor transport. Again, as I said, we work with the Pixley Funeral Home, and they told us they could do a little bit beyond even what we have right here. One of the key things that was actually difficult for us to start the program was not having OWB mausoleum. And I'll show you the picture. So that is the OWB mausoleum. And for a person that comes to our program, we want to be able to, enter their cremains after their passing, right? After they're done with the studies. And we didn't want to have any extra cost for them. And so this took a lot of time for us to work with. So the OWB School of Medicine worked with the Rochester City to acquire this receiving vault, which was not used. And Mr. Warren Pixley was able to renovate this. And so now, after the donors were cremated, we could put the cremains in this mausoleum. And this would be the first year that we'll be using. As I said, we have 2 donors that the school received. And we will be inviting the families when we do this after the memorial ceremony. And here you can see the dedication that happened in 2022, where you can see Mr. Pixley, who's in the middle, who was instrumental in renovating this. And here's the website. Again, if you go to the website, you will see all the FAQs, what are the requirements that a person, anybody needs to fill. Again, that's the QR code if you want to scan this website. And we'll also have some magnets for you if you guys want to take anything back. All right, so that's all I had, and I'm happy to take any questions that you have. Thank you.
If the family wanted the remains back, can they decide not to put them in your mausoleum?
Great question. So in our the form that I said, the 2 options exist, right? Does the person want it to be with us in the mausoleum, or would they want us to send the cremains back? If they check that box, then we do work with the family members, and then we do send them back. Great question.
Do you take bodies that were organ donors?
Okay, great question. So the question is, some of them are organ donors. Do you take them? If they are donors for cornea, yes, we do take them. But if they are other organ donors, right, it's difficult to embalm them, the process that we do for them to do, because if they had a surgery, let's say that if they had a surgery done, yes, if they don't have an organ, we can still take them. But if they have organ donor, what happens is they don't do the surgeries after this, and so it's difficult for us. So if they're an organ donor, unfortunately, we will not be able to accept. But again, we encourage everybody to be an organ donor, because saving lives, again, that is more primary than donating body to science.
How long do you have the donor body?
Great question again. So typically, like for example, like the 2 donors that I was talking about, we received them last year, and then we're giving them the cremains back this year. So typically we use them for a year, but when the donors sign, we can say that it can take up to 3 years. But majority of the time, within a year, we give the ashes back.
Is there certain criteria for the bodies you accept?
Yeah, so like we are not as restrictive as other programs. So some of the programs have like weight restriction, height restriction. We're not as restrictive. If you go to the website, you'll see like some of the things. For example, if somebody has some of the infectious diseases, we don't want to risk our students because they've been working for the entire semester. So those are the only things that, again, we put it on the website. If other than that, we take every individual that come to our program.
How many people do you have signed up for the body donation program?
A great question. Christina?
Close to 150 are registered, and we have accepted to date 6 people who have died and gave us that precious gift. So 6 people have come into the lab.
Since your body donation program is so new, where do you currently get donations from?
Right. So we work with other universities, for example, the University of Toledo and the Wright State University, right? So for example, like when they get donations, sometimes they get more donations than what they can use. And in the form that they do say that, if other programs also honor the donors like how their program do, then they can transfer them. And so we get some of the donors from those 2 universities.
Will you also be sharing your body donations?
Right. Great question. Yeah, so currently for our donor needs, right, so we would need anywhere from 45 to 50 donors. We also have physical therapy, right? They need anywhere from 15 to 20 donors. We also have undergraduate biology program. It's actually one of the programs in the country that offer dissection. They need anywhere from 30 to 40 donors. And so I think by the time we become self-sufficient, maybe then we can think of doing that.
What if the donor signed up, but the family doesn't want to honor that donation?
Again, great question. This does happen sometimes, because when the person dies, right, so the next of kin has to inform us. Sometimes we don't get this information, right? Again, because we're new, we don't we don't see that as frequently, but we go to the other program. For example, Wayne State, who's been there for forever, so they do have some program. They do have still some donors on their list, like who are maybe 150 years old, right? So possibly that the loved ones might not have informed them. So first thing is we encourage every person that signed up with us to tell their family members and have a discussion with them, so that after their passing, then they can talk to us. If they don't inform us, right, unfortunately, like, we will not know this. But sometimes, where there were conditions where the donors came to the program, and not our program, in other programs, because I talked to my colleagues nationally, and then the family members somehow find out about this, and then they call us saying that, okay, we didn't know about this, we didn't want to do this, and then the program tried to talk to them, saying, hey, what does this mean to their loved ones? Try to convince them, and if they're still not, hesitant, if they still doesn't want to do it, because again, remember, like there's a death in the family, right? And we don't want to cause more suffering, and so a lot of the times, programs work with the family and send the donor back to the family, and they can do the, whatever they wanted to do with the donor.
If donated, will my body be handled respectfully?
I'll start, and I'll have Christina, because she is the newest member. I think it's only been like few months she joined us, so she can tell us from she joined us recently, so she can give us an outsider's perspective, right? But I'll talk to you. So our lab that I showed you, it's 24/7 accessible. And when I tell this to my colleagues, like they're like, "Are you serious? Like, are you out of your mind? Like, how are you able to do it?" And this all starts with our students. If you look our program like the OEWB, we use yes, we are a medical school. Yes, we do interviews. Unlike other schools, we do like a holistic process. When we look at the student, yes, their grades are important, but more importantly, we look at what kind of a person is this student that is coming to us, right? And in the future, are they going to be like a good physician, right? Are they going to be in the community? Are they going to be a good, a citizen? And the way how we see this, have they done any community service while they're in their high school or undergrad? And most of the time, our students nationally, they're way above what usually medical schools require. And it also comes out through the interviews. So the reason why I'm saying is the students that we admit in our school, right, are very respectful. And so that's why like we give them full freedom whenever they want to go into the lab. In fact, one of the things that we do is like if you gone to a doctor, right? So if you're examining their hand, they're not going to make you naked, right? So they're going to cover everything and they're going to do this. This is exactly what our students do to our donors. When they're dissecting a region, that's the only region they expose and everything else is covered. And so they're very respectful, right? Towards the entire semester, and I'll have Christina add anything.
Hi, I'm Christina. I'm the new body donation coordinator. I've been there for just 6 months, and I love your question. To me, the human body is holy and precious, and it is such an honor, I'll tell you, to be in that lab as a non-science person, a non-medical person. I love seeing these young people, our future physical therapists, our future physicians. And I love seeing their leaders, their teachers. And I can assure you, it is such a place of reverence and respect. They really do talk about the individual on the table as people. I've heard professors say, your loved one. What can we learn about our loved one when they find an anomaly or when they find presence of disease? They talk about how did this person suffer at the end of their life? I'm feeling emotional just talking to you about it. It really is a place of great respect. And it's also a place of joy. I know we're all anxious about death, certainly I am, and it's an uncomfortable thing to talk about, but it's a place, it's not a morbid place, it's a joyful place because there's learning, there's enlightenment, there is hope. And I wouldn't want to be a part of it if that wasn't the case. So thank you for your question.
To add on to that, one thing I'd say is to keep our donors' privacy, we do not share their names with the students, even though we've been getting requests from the students, hey, we would like to know our donor's name, right? We haven't made a decision whether to do it or not, but to our students' credit, they give a name to this person and they call them with their name throughout the semester. In fact, it so happened that one of the students gave the name and the same name, the patient had the same name. And so she was giving this during memorial ceremony, so she was talking about this person, and I was like, how did she know about this? And then it seemed like she went to a clinic where she was attached to a person. So she was describing about that, and which I was not aware. And so I talked to the student, hey, like, we want to respect the privacy. Could you, take this name? And she was, amenable to my suggestion. But it just so happened that the name that she gave to the donor was the same name that the person had. So to show that, how much the students value every single person and how they refer to them.
What if one of the students recognized my body?
Again, great question. So we take donor privacy, we give donor privacy utmost importance, right? So that's why we don't share even names of the people. One of the ways, sometimes Christina and I have some internal discussions. One of the things that we do when the donors come is we shave the hair, right? Not because we don't, it's not like we're taking away their humanity, right? But it's like kind of standardizing for everyone because they need to access the skull, right? And so with that said, after the embalming process is done and the hair is removed, majority of the donors, right, are not identifiable like how they were in living, right? So that alone takes away. But in fact, if we have a person that has somebody, we take that into consideration, and that's why we have this 3-year window period, right? So that if there is somebody that are related to them, then we can use the following year, not the same year.
Okay, so this concludes our presentation for today. Did anyone learn anything new today? Right? I've seen this presentation before and I still learned something new today. So that's wonderful, wonderful news. It's nice to see how the students are affected by body donation because that's something we really don't know or hear about. So that's a wonderful thing that we got to appreciate today.